Okay, now we got sample 6. We got another Leo, Leo in the first house this time. Cancer rising, Leo square Neptune, Sun square Neptune, and the Moon square Saturn. So one way, the goals here are a little bit more confused. The family is a little more strict or restrictive, so there might be a wanting to escape from the expectations of mom or family, just from her natal chart thing. Her Jupiter's in the 5th house, and it's square Uranus and Mercury. So she has Uranus, Mercury. That's great excitement for learning astrology. Uranus, Mercury, Sun in the 1st house. She knows it. That's good, but it squares Jupiter, so being able to, there's a tendency to have the outlook, there's a kind of, it means there's changes of philosophy at times in life. But her Jupiter's at 22 degrees, the Uranus at 15, and Mercury's at 19. And even though it's conjunct, it's moving out, it's continually moving away from that, moving out of that excitement. So Mercury and Uranus, it's trying to understand the next stage. It's about 5th house, kids, home, family, creativity, teaching. Her Mars, Venus, and Mars is conjunct Pluto, but it's all in the 3rd house, and only the Pluto's a difficult aspect. I have to control this, I have to do this, but we'll get to Pluto's aspects next week. But the Jupiter just moves forward. It's going to go in 2037. It goes out of Scorpio, out of the passionate judgments, into Sagittarius, where it rules out the philosophy. So her spiritual understanding will probably blossom from 2017 on, and it's going to square the Mars square the Mars and Pluto in 2046 and 47. Okay, her Saturn again goes back. It starts retrograde, just goes back, and then it goes back to 2001 July, and then it went forward to 2040. 2041, it comes back to the Saturn position at birth. And then after that, going back, it's going forward in this lifetime for the first time. Move back the whole time. But that means it goes through that degree. And whenever she went through in the first, from 59 up to 2001, she's going back over to that same area from 2001 to 2041. It's only making the square to the midheaven. Is it making even that? Yep, squares. No, it doesn't even come to square the midheaven. No, it doesn't get to there. It's just changing the sign. Not even changing the sign. It's staying in Capricorn whole life in the first few degrees. There we can see. Jupiter going up to Jupiter's in Sag. Then her Saturn staying in Capricorn, stays in Cap, doesn't come out of it, goes the whole time. So she gets, the Jupiter blossoms and it gets better, and the Saturn holds steady. But in that Saturn, what she worked at through the first part of life to 2001, it starts changing. She says, well, should I have done the work the same? What else am I going to do? Am I going to do a different till to 2041? And then what am I going to do? Then it starts going forward. It starts going forward a little bit. So small thing, but significant things. These dates, progressed dates tend to put the fear of God in you. Oh my goodness, what's this? I mean, you don't want to worry about it, but really they're just evolving and you're coming through that. Okay, sample 7. October 4th, Libra, Taurus moon, Aries rising. Yeah, businesswoman, had a couple of marriages. Her Jupiter squares her Saturn and her moon, and conjuncts Pluto. So Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So there's a fight for her understanding. She had to fight for understanding, and for what she would want, even around kids, or what she wanted to do as a kid. There would be struggles around what's right and what's wrong. That's the Pluto, the confrontation around these things. And then the moon squares Pluto, harshness, difficulties with mom in the past, and Saturn comes in and ties this in. So she really be really sensitive to a kind of depression or sensitivity to the relationships of parents, moon, Saturn. And being a girl, she may not have gotten the right attention or anything, and it really related maybe to the brothers more or whatever. I'm not sure. Just some puzzle here that was depressed, just boring, depressing. But her Uranus squared Mercury. She has Mercury conjunct Neptune, the great imagination, and it's squared by Uranus. It's high strung. It sees things differently. It's going to break away and think for itself. no afflictions from the Mars, from the sixth house sun, no afflictions to the sun. They're working fine unless she works, she gets her own things, works fine. But around kids and family and parents, it's always a serious matter. So I remember she was taking the class. She took the classes with me, and she's back in the webinar series, but she took the classes with me, and her mom was dying during that time, and sometimes she'd be late. Sometimes she had to go do everything for her mom, to do everything, take care of things. She was the eternal helper while running a full career and studying astrology at the same time. But look at her Jupiter. It goes up and across her life till 1980, it built up to square exactly her Pluto. There's an understanding of having to understand Pluto, having to understand what you don't want to understand. But kids, family, like so 80, 55, 65, 75, 25, how do you get out of the house? Or does she have her kids? Is she stuck in a marriage? I'm not sure how it worked out, but there would have been the battle around it. And somewhere by 98, her Jupiter went into Virgo. And somewhere in here, she brought up her kids. She got divorced, but she still kept in touch with her kids and stuff. But she got divorced, and somewhere along here, she got married again. And the Jupiter will move up to 2029 when it gets up to that first or second degree of Virgo, then it goes retrograde. But it never backs up back into Leo. It goes forward and goes retrograde. So it just has that little point of it. Look at her Saturn. Her Saturn just goes straight her whole lifetime. It was about 12 degrees in 100 years, 100 days. But in that 12 years, it's touching a lot of things. Okay, and that Saturn, which is at 18, it's going to move up. It's going to hit the moon. It's going to hit the Jupiter. 90, 91, 98, 91 it hits the Saturn. 99 it hits the moon. So there's the Saturn coming in to push on the intensity of the restrictions from the family. Or 7th is possibly marriage. And then it moves along, and in 2033 it goes into the 8th house of understanding. Now, the 8th house of trust. But it's also commitments, it's kids. Maybe there's grandkids come in, maybe someone dies, there's inheritance factors dealing with. That's the Jupiter going up. It moves up in the last part of her life. It is in the 8th house, 2023. But as it goes into the 8th house, it's going to square the Pluto. So 1999 it squares to Jupiter. It hits the moon Jupiter. Then it hits the Pluto by 2030. And then goes into the sign, into signs by 20. It goes into the 8th house by 2033, and it's changing sign by 2055. So if she lives to 100, it would change signs. It's going to be in Scorpio her lifetime, but it's doing a lot of specific things as you go along. So at this point, you have the options to go through the pentans. This is going Saturn in the Scorpio, Capricorn pentan, and then into the Aquarius, and then into the Pisces pentans. Going through that, or you could look at the hexagrams it goes through. From that point, it's going from gathering together, massing, and to progress, the light of progress. In fact, when I was first seeing how incredible progressions were working, my first big insight was coming during the 6 years when my progressed sun went through that hexagram of progress. Anyways, this is, as soon as you put someone's story to these, and they're talking to someone, they come very alive. They get through it. Real issues come up, long-term issues and situations come up. Am I going to leave home? Do I leave home? When do I leave home? Am I going to get pulled back? What am I going to do? You get pulled into all these long-term things. How do I deal with dad, or what's happening with this boss? These things come up and they stick there for a long time. And these are on our progressed outer planet things. You can see them play out by the transits, but you see the attitudes and things building up. So if it's not one person, it would have been somebody else doing this. Really, you can't really blame anyone else for your transits of progressions. It's your chart going on. It's your life building up. And really, if anything bad's happening, it's probably because you set it in motion in another lifetime or some other time, and it's just catching up to you now and you're having to deal with it. You sit there blaming someone else until you get to realize, well, it's not how come they're doing this to me? How come I had to attract this? And understanding is a difficult thing, because you see, you can't, how you understand. Now here's someone, her Jupiter starts at 1 degree, goes retrograde, goes direct, comes back to the same point and goes forward again. all in the 11th house. It may not, I don't know, I'll have to see, get closer if it gets into the 12th, it goes back into the 10th house, but it's mostly 11th house. And with a lot of dates throughout all that. So look at the Saturn in the 12th house, like me, there's a isolation and career. You work hard, you're on your own, it's hard, it's opposed Mercury, so there's a tendency for that, the difficulty of, there's a caution in one's thinking. It's good for astrology, for thinking about astrology, but there's also probably difficulties talking to his dad, or people feeling responsible for what he has to do. There's imaginary Venus, Mercury in Pisces, but it's opposed by Saturn, so it makes it cautious. And Saturn rules astrology. It's a cautious study of time. It's not a radical, exciting thing. It's very cautious, practical, down to earth thing. But he has Sun conjunct Mars in the 5th house, so there's the performer in him. Square Uranus, a volatile, disruptive person, changing things. No problems from his Neptune's in the 3rd house around brothers, sisters. Venus in the 4th, squaring Pluto, so there's contradictions of what I want, where do I want to live, what do I put up with. But his Jupiter is up in the 11th house, and it just stays up in that 11th house, goes from Leo back to Virgo, but it's going to hit the moon, it's going to square the moon, and it's going to back and forth square the moon. What else is going on here? Let's go closer. Yeah, so it squares them. It's at 1, backs up. At 90, it went back into Leo, and then in 2000 in July, it was hitting the moon. It was squaring the moon. It went retrograde in February 17. It went back as far as it's going to, went stationary direct in 2017, but really 10 years either side of this, maybe more. It's within a degree of that going retrograde, turning his outlook around. So then it comes back to hit the moon in 2030, whole family. Then it goes back from there in 2040, it goes back into Leo again. And if he lives to 2052, it will be back conjunct itself, and he goes forward in his life from then. This is all tied up with friends, but it'll also be friends versus lovers. 11th house, who's a friend, who's a lover? What's the right understanding? I think when I met him, he was coming in here, just after it went direct. He had a band. He was traveling with the band, but he was going back to Pakistan. And his interest in astrology, and he's kept up his interest in astrology. I haven't talked to him, so I don't really know if he's kept up his band. But when you look at his chart, the Mars Sun in the 5th house, playing in the band is probably a good thing for him. Jupiter in the 8th house, holding a band together, that's a good thing. There might be struggles and changes because Jupiter squares the moon, or in the 2nd house, there might be fluctuating money or income things, but he attracts fluctuating income things, not totally stable ones. Okay, so let's just take a look at his Saturn here. Yeah, Saturn just is retrograde, it goes retrograde. If he lives to 2061, it'll go back to oppose his Mercury. So his Saturn steadily is backing up, getting tighter and tighter onto his Mercury. So he's getting more and more cautious as he gets older, more and more planning as he gets older, more and more thinking. But at the same time, in this time period, he's learning astrology, and that Saturn Mercury can be very practical, timing sense of astrology, but at the same time, not everybody around him, his father, and that may not exactly like that. So what's new? Okay. How are we doing? Yeah, so we still got a bunch to do, so let's keep going. So just a close-up of the chart. You can get, it's got this there, it's got the Saturn and the Jupiter all in it.